Before I start this video off, I want to say that this idea came from some of you guys in the comment section of one of our other Halo videos. You guys are so creative and like-minded, it's amazing, and I want to say thank you for helping to get this channel off the ground and to have the possibility of this actually being something me and Cam could pursue someday, maybe, if we're lucky, if the algorithm gods ever smile upon us and our lives actually go in a direction that allows us to spend our free time on things that we enjoy rather than us just feeling so run down and creatively bankrupt that we don't want to do anything besides lie in bed and weep. So what if Halo and Star Wars Empire at War had a baby? There are so many other games that I could have made Halo jump in bed with, but I went with Empire at War because I think it resonates with more people. Now, picture this if you will. What if you could explore a procedurally generated Halo universe with all the factions and encounters that you might find in, say, human systems that are under attack, insurrectionist-controlled systems, Covenant-occupied systems, ones that are flood-infested, the brute homeworld, the elite homeworld, grunts, jackals, etc. There are already some games out there that do this type of thing, but it's very much a dying genre in my opinion. I firmly believe that if literally any game studio made another one of these types of games with today's technology, then the genre would blow up once more and possibly even take over the market. But that's me, as I love these type of games and I just want everyone else to be like me and love the things that I love, please. Is that so much to ask for? Now when I say any game studio, I believe that the best game series to be converted into this genre would be Halo. If you think about it, they're basically halfway there with Halo Wars. I remember playing Star Wars Empire at War after every other game I played as a little stopgap in between my bigger games, though you could argue that Empire at War is a big game within itself. After completing the campaign a dozen times because it's so replayable, all I would do is set up a skirmish game with the biggest map I could find, choose the dark side, and basically make the Death Star, and make every planet an asteroid. The function of the game is just so satisfying. You're in control of the entire army, the planets, your combat strategy. Who doesn't want that kind of control in a game franchise that they love? Such as Halo. I mean, it took years for players just to be able to fly a Pelican, so imagine giving players control over every aspect of the UNSC military. It would be pretty awesome. I didn't think about it this way really until I saw a comment in our last Halo video from a person who clearly should have been hired by 343, maybe a bit earlier. The way they described it was that you could play as and switch between three characters. The main character would be the Admiral. You would be in control of a flagship and command a UNSC battle group that can be outfitted and upgraded and so on. As the game goes on, you could grow your fleet and send ships on missions to the other side of the system, with some kind of percentage or chance of them being successful depending on their upgrades. Let's say you could answer distress calls personally, which could grant you more firepower and specialist teams, or explore unknown regions of space, maybe discover foreigner locations that present these special upgrades to ships and units. You could control and command forces from low orbit like in Halo Wars, but it would also have Empire at War aspects. For example, you have to capture zones that then become eligible for you to make outposts, similar to the ones in Halo Wars. You would start off with however many fire teams you've brought with you, and that have been made on other planets you control, and you would have them to choose from when you first touch down on the new planet. But let's say during combat, you'd also be able to drop your ODST squad or Spartan into the field and then switch to them for hands-on intervention in battle. This could possibly be done through either a countdown or a cooldown system when the battle starts, or maybe you have to capture another outpost or whatever. Another thing that you could add into this very specific version of the game, I'm imagining, is something like the mechanics of what Tom Clancy's End War did with voice control. I don't know about anyone else, but when I found this gem in my local game store and put it in my Xbox 360, I know, I'm so retro, my mind was blown with being able to command units with my own voice. Can you imagine what they could do with this mechanic with the tech that they have now? Voice recognition has got so much better over the years, it would be absolutely mind-blowing. You could assign certain groups of troops and vehicles to a unit letter and say things like scout ahead or head to Alpha or something like that. Locations like Alpha, for example, could be locations you place through the map manually, so you don't need to keep going back and forth from the unit in the location you want to send them to. I'm going to get a little bit off track now, if I'm not already, but I was watching a simulation game recently of a control tower at an airport, as you do, and the way that they used voice control in that made you feel incredibly immersed, and this is what this game could be like if it had this mechanic. Anyway, moving on. One thing that I thought was a bit disappointing about the Halo games was that there wasn't enough space battles. Because who doesn't love a good goddamn space battle? There are small moments in bigger, longer missions where you can control a Pelican or a spaceship, but that is definitely not quite the same. Imagine Empire at War combat, but with Halo frigates and ships on a large scale. Remember that feeling of taking charge of that first little army that you made in Halo Wars, and when you sent them off to attack a group of Covenant? Well, imagine that, but with ships that look like this. It'd be cool, right? Right? It's not just me. It is just me, isn't it? If you also happen to be a Star Wars fan, I already know how it felt when you made your first couple of Star Destroyers and you found any old excuse to use them in a space battle whilst you were playing Empire at War. Selecting them and having them decimate lesser ships in combat was extremely satisfying, and it could easily be the same for this Halo game. One amazingly realistic feature that Star Wars had was the fact that it would have the ships carrying the troops and vehicles into combat. Now, we all know that the ships in Halo are big enough to hold loads of troops and loads of vehicles, so maybe there could be a way to select the ships that hold the troops and the vehicles you've planned for the planetary attack, and you could make it so that either they're at the back of the space battle, or, like in Empire, you put them to the back of the queue, I guess you would call it, and make it so that they're the last ones to jump into the space battle. Before we go on to the next character you can play, I just want to talk about the construction and planet management. The DLC for Empire at War Forces of Corruption allows you to place the buildings and ground forces throughout the map however you want, depending on the map configuration and the number of slots. This could be cool because if you somehow balance this mechanic, you could then go to your planets and play them like Halo Wars whilst outside of battle, and then just upgrade your planet to Kingdom Come and place your units all over the map and create the maximum amount of them. It would be cool to keep the aspect of the factories from Empire at War where, when you're in combat, each of the factories produce the biggest vehicle that they can every so often, or when the first one they produce is destroyed. There have been so many times where this has helped me from saving my planet from being taken over because I've forgotten to produce units on it. Right, anyway, on to the next character. Another character that you could play, so that the original Halo games aren't completely thrown to one side, is the Spartan. This would be a solo unit that players could customize and then can be sent on dangerous missions, possibly behind enemy lines or missions that are more suited to one person going in alone. These missions could be like where you make a spy in Empire at War and you send them onto a planet so you can temporarily see what's on that planet and who controls it. The thing that would make this different is that the missions could be randomized, but within the confines of the planet you send the Spartan to. Literally take any Halo mission to date and you could shove something similar to those into this mission randomizer and control your Spartan and make sure the objective is completed to then reveal the information or receive an item. Maybe the controlling the Spartan element is a bit ambitious, but I'm just spitballing dream ideas here. To keep multiplayer in the mix, you could even compete in an arena to level up the Spartan's progression system, like armor, equipment, weapons, vehicle unlocks, or maybe just cosmetic unlocks. This could be your Spartan entering a training room that simulates combat against other Spartans from other flagship groups. Again, we're getting pretty ambitious here, but maybe they could do it in a kind of, I don't know, simplistic way rather than having it being a fully fledged FPS multiplayer arena shooter. And just have it be kind of a side thing that happens. A bit like when you send your Mortal Kombat teams of 3 to fight one another in MK11, right? Does anyone know that? Sure? Why not? Another thing I'd like to add, because I don't know how hard this would actually be to implement in the game because I'm not a dev, but here we go, is the option to take control of these characters and walk around your main flagship and interact with the different stats on your character by going into certain rooms that allow you to upgrade and change your appearance and whatever. So kind of like a little mini hub world that you sort of create and develop over time. Maybe I'm getting carried away, maybe it's too many features, but I'm excited, okay? Just bear with me. And last but by no means least is the ODST character. This would be an ODST squad leader that can command a squad of customizable team members for capture and defense missions, escort missions, and major group actions. Maybe there could be another multiplayer element where players can pit their custom ODST squads against one another in some kind of war games feature. What I love about this possibility is potentially adding some XCOM mechanics in the way that it handles death. Imagine getting a set of soldiers, collecting them as recruits, say, and as the campaign goes on, the units you used would gain experience and eventually be divided into classes like sniper or demolitions, etc. Then the missions would go the way that they go, and say one of your squad members gets downed, you might have a med pack on one of your teams so you can command them to heal and stabilise them. Maybe they need to be extracted halfway through the mission, and you could call in a med evac, and then once that's successful, you could continue forward with the rest of your squad. Also, depending on how brutal you want the game to be, the squad member could still die depending on how severe their wounds are. Maybe there's some kind of chance or percentage that calculates whether or not they're actually going to pull through despite having been stabilised. Stuff like this has the potential to create some extreme moments of personal tragedy for the player, which, for some reason, is something that I want from my games these days. For example, when I played XCOM 2, I named all the soldiers after my close friends and close family, and so when they died in horrible ways, I was mortified, and they were dead forever, and I couldn't bring them back. And I love that game, so I don't know what that says about me, but there you go. Once more, on top of all of the features I've already mentioned and all of the content this would already have to cover, you could essentially create two games out of this, where you have one side for the UNSC and one side for the Covenant. Empire did it, so why can't a game in this generation do it, right? Games in this generation are way better than the games of the older generations, we all know that, don't we? It's just a fact. I know it's a lot more complicated, obviously, than just going, okay, copy-paste UNSC army and make Covenant army, and it's all done and dusted. But you know what I mean. Going back to how the general gameplay might be. For the logistics, there could be a set amount of factory worlds of all types, from civilian to military and agriculture, and if you don't provide enough food or materials for either civilians or your military units, there could be a rebellion and your people would become insurgents as they start attacking your supply lines both on the ground and in space. You'd need to establish supply bases, supply lines, and fortress stations to protect your supply. You could even go down the diplomacy route to end the insurgency and gain insurgent fleets to add to your own fleets. Just to pile even more inspiration into the mix of this pretty big melting pot of random video game ideas being thrown together into something that I think would be awesome, you could even take inspiration from Mass Effect 3's structure. You could go out and try and help these different factions so that they join your cause, and with each mission, the threat of what would be the Covenant in this situation rather than the Reapers grows bigger and bigger. Essentially, the ideal way for the game to progress is that depending on the difficulty you choose, it would calculate the growth of the Covenant presence and the size of their army in the system. This would allow you to go through the tutorial and actually be able to play the game at a nice pace where you can witness all aspects of gameplay before having to face the problem head on. I'm not sure if there are others like me out there. I'd be surprised if there are. But when I'm playing a game like Age of Empires, for example, I like to upgrade everything first before I even think about making an army and attacking. And this pacing would allow for that, but I guess that's just me. Of course, for a more challenging experience, you could have harder difficulties that make the growth rate of the enemy force quicker, and therefore force you to face them head on much faster, but I personally probably wouldn't play at that difficulty because I'm scared. So that is my perhaps slightly convoluted image of what might happen if Halo and Star Wars Empire at War got busy under the sheets. Cam, don't you animate that, Cam. Cameron, it's YouTube. This is a family show. Stop it. Anyway, hopefully this video gets enough views and shares that it gets to the eyes of someone who makes the big decisions over there. But if that did happen, I want me and Cam and all our subscribers to have credit. You hear me, Phil Spencer? We're looking at you. We're watching you. It's not a threat. Don't take that out of context. It's not a threat. We don't threaten developers or corporations here. We're not those sort of people. I'm sorry, we're not those sort of fans. Whatever you want to do, I'll buy your game anyway. It's been a while since we did a video. My life has been busy with work. Cam's life has been busy with work. And then various other personal things that, personal commitments you have to deal with. Trying to actually have some downtime in between all the work is important. You gotta look after your mental health. Which we have probably done to limited success, but hey, you gotta try. So yeah, this has been a nice, fun, creative exercise. We're gonna do some more of these. We're definitely craving a bit more creative energy in our lives right now. So we'll try and get some more done and out to you ASAP. Thank you very much. And stick around for the next one. See you again soon. Bye.